You're listening to the Co-Creator Network. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Welcome to Awakenings. After a month-long hiatus where I spent a month with my wife and several new friends in Hawaii. What an incredible experience that was. We were on the Big Island, on the Kona side, and the original purpose for going there was to facilitate a conference I was doing with David Wilcock in the middle of the month. And what we did was extend a couple weeks on both sides of that and stayed with friends and various vacation resorts and what have you for the month. We left on February 1st and got back March the 2nd, so a little bit over a month. What a wonderful time that was. The energy there, or the feeling there, is so peaceful, so wonderful. I was just talking to Ken at Co-Creator Network, and he was saying that he got to spend a month on Maui a few years ago. And he noticed that everything grows over there, and that feels right. Everything seems to grow. And I met some wonderful people. A man named Gary Guller. And if you don't know about Gary Guller, I recommend that you go to his website, Gary, G-A-R-Y, Guller, G-U-L-L-E-R.com. A wonderful story. And we stayed with my friend Joe Conti, JoeConti.com, Joe Conti, for about half the month. And Joe was kind enough to hire me for a few music gigs over there. So I ended up playing guitar on several Hawaiian gigs, playing some music that I knew and some music that I had never heard before. But it was fun, and met some wonderful musicians over there. We rented a car, drove all over the island. We were on the Hilo side, the Kona side, went down to the volcano, went up to Waimea, and then farther up to Hawaii. It felt so good over there. I cannot describe the feeling that it feels like over there. I guess you just have to experience it. Of course, the weather was incredible. The weather was always perfect. We did not use the air conditioner when we slept. We just opened the window because it was perfect. I mean, opening the window with a light sheet and the weather was perfect, just perfect. I learned a lot of lessons over there. One of the lessons that I learned that I want to share with everyone is that what you think you know, you don't really know. Or at least that's what I found out. I remember us, towards the end of the stay there, we were having a supper together with a bunch of people. And we were sitting in this wonderful restaurant at a table with a bunch of friends. There was about, I guess, 8 of us, 6 to 8 of us. I don't remember the number. And in the next room was a guitar player who was playing music. Now, this restaurant was very loud. Most of the people were not paying attention to the musician. They were busy talking and having fun and eating. And of course, you know, when you're in a restaurant, especially with floors, wooden floors and wooden sides and lots of talking, it gets pretty loud. But he was patiently and calmly playing light classical music in the background, sometimes singing, mainly as instrumentals. And Joe and I had been talking about the fact that if I was there on the island, I could play music over there. I could play music for a living. And so what I thought in my mind, the thinking mind said, no, I couldn't do that. I don't want to do that. Good grief, that guy's just sitting over there in the other room. Nobody's paying attention to him. He's just playing for himself. I mean, I would never do that. So I shared with the group. I just said, no, I would never do that. My thinking mind was saying, no, I would never do that. So I forgot about it. And Joe had picked up his granddaughter, Levi, and he was walking around the room with her. And she's about 9 months old. So he loves his granddaughter, and he was having a good time. So he was walking around, and I didn't pay much attention to Joe. And then in no time, he comes up to me. He says, okay, Larry, come on. And so I get up and I go, what where are we going? He takes me and he sits me down. He takes me to the guitar player, introduces me, and the guitar player hands me the guitar. He says, okay, play. And of course, I just said, no, I never want to do this. I never want to. The thinking mind says, no, I don't want to do this. Play in a room with a bunch of people not even listening. All they're doing is just talking. And so as soon as he handed me the guitar, I realized, okay, this is Spirit's way of saying, you don't know what you're talking about, Larry. Just play. So I grabbed the guitar and I started playing, and I loved it. It was great. It didn't matter that everybody was talking and listening to themselves talk instead of the music. It didn't matter to me that the room was loud and that I could barely hear what I was playing because the guitar had to be quiet and so that everybody could hear each other talk. It didn't matter. And it was fun. And I enjoyed myself playing. So I learned that what I think I know, I don't know. We have all these preconceived ideas about what we think would be best for us or what we think we would like. And we judge or we make decisions on what we're going to do or what we're not going to do because of what we think. But what we think doesn't matter. Not really. Because we only know a certain amount of facts that only relate to this tiny little portion of the universe that we are aware of. We know a subset of the whole. Obviously, a subset of the whole cannot have the information that the whole has. Everything knows everything because it's everything. But the little part that believes it's not everything, in other words, little Larry, who thinks he's this little person who thinks that he is separate from everything, it has this limited access to the whole of knowledge, makes decisions using only this little bitty subset of information of the whole, and decides that, yes, I want this, or no, I don't want that, based purely on this tiny little bit of information that we have access to. The little part that is known as me. The little part that I think is separate from everything else. And what I learned from that little experience was that I don't know everything, and I don't know what's best for me. I can decide, and I can think that I know, and I can make decisions, but they may or may not be what is best for me. It was putting into action the thing that's mentioned into the Bible Not my will, but your will, Father. Many of us have the attitude that, well, if we don't decide what is best for us, who will? In other words, we are responsible for our lives, so we must make these decisions, right? We're the one responsible, ultimately responsible for everything. Isn't that what we're taught? Aren't we taught that the result of all of our decisions is our experience in this life, and if we decide to get in a car and get in an accident, it was our fault because we chose to get in the car, or we make decisions to take these classes in school and major in this particular subject, and then we graduate from school, and then we have this particular career or that particular career. And our decisions throughout our life affect our experience in this life. That seems to be what's true, doesn't it? It seems to be that we decide what is best for us, and then there are outcomes from our decisions. But what would happen? What would happen? Just imagine, what would happen if we did not decide and instead let the universe direct us every step of the way? Now, there are people in the world, I'm sure, that would say that that kind of logic would ultimately lead to chaos. And there is no way that you could be brought to an experience of happiness by allowing something other than yourself to decide, because aren't you responsible for yourself? But what I'm learning and what I'm finding out, and of course what the Course teaches and what many spiritual teachers teach, is that we do not know what is best for us. We do not know what is best for us. And that we can have a fulfilled, beautiful, wonderful, happy experience in this life by allowing the universe to decide for us. In other words, this is what I'm trying to say, or what I'm trying to explain here, is the acceptance of whatever comes as perfect. The saying of yes to everything that comes our way. Yes, I will grab that guitar, I will play, even though the thinking mind just a few minutes before was saying, no, I would never do that. I don't want to do that. That would not, no. Just say yes. Just say yes. So the acceptance of what comes as perfect is the way for the universe to gift to us what is best for us. Now, the thinking mind will be quick to come to in your mind right now, just like it did with me, and say, well, what if the universe comes and brings you something bad? What if the universe throws a car in front of you? What if you see a baby being abused? Or does that mean that you're not supposed to go help the baby? Does acceptance of everything, does that mean that you have to allow all the evil in the world? And what happens? Invariably, this question comes up during my talk at the conferences. And what came very clear to me this time was this answer, and I will share with you what came to me. There are two voices speaking to us at all times. And there's only two voices. Only two voices. One voice is the thinking mind. It is the ego. It is what the Course calls the ego. It is the voice that speaks from a position of what if or I should not have. It is the voice that never speaks about now. It is the voice that is always thinking about the past, or it's thinking about the future. But it never thinks about now, not at this moment. That's one voice. That's the voice that's always talking to us. There's another voice that's always talking to us. And that voice only speaks about now. It never speaks about the future, and it never speaks about the past. It only speaks about right now, this moment. And this moment is all that there is. So, the two voices are this: one that speaks of now, and one that speaks of not now. And our choice is always to decide which voice to listen to. So when we are seeing, like for instance, in this conference, one lady said, or one gentleman said, well, if you see a baby being abused, acceptance of everything, does that mean that you just let the baby be abused? Or do you get involved and you do something? And my answer is, you listen to the voice of now. And I call these two voices, one is intuition and one is thinking. One is the thinking voice is always about not now, and the intuition is always about now. So if your intuition guides you to do something about the baby being abused, by all means, step in and do it. Because the intuition knows everything. Intuition has access to knowledge you do not have. The now, which is everything, knows everything, and it will direct you whether or not you are to get involved with something that seems to be wrong. The thinking mind will only use a subset of the knowledge of everything. It is worried about the future and regretting the past or remembering the past. It's never about the now. So listening to that voice cannot possibly direct you to the correct or to an outcome that will provide peace for you, because it is coming from a limited set of knowledge. So what I learned and what I was directed, or given is a better word, is that the two voices always speak to us. And in every circumstance, if we listen to the voice of intuition, listen to the intuition voice, the voice of now, it directs us fully and completely and always correctly for the best outcome for everyone and everything. Always and completely. Now, how do you discern between the two voices? How do you know which voice to listen to? How do you know which voice to listen to? Obviously, the voice I was listening to at the beginning of the meal, when I sat down to eat with everyone, the voice that was saying, I would never want to play guitar in front of all these people who weren't paying attention to me. The people that were more interested in talking and drinking and eating, who most of them didn't even notice that there was a musician there. So the voice that was telling me that I would not want to do that was coming from the thinking voice, the voice that was not now. Yet, when I had my attention turned to something else, and Joe was walking his granddaughter around, and then he was guided to go up to the musician and then call me up. So I answered the call. When I stood there in front of the musician and Joe and Levi is her name, instantly I knew I was to grab the guitar and play it. He handed me the guitar. I knew, okay, yes, I will grab this guitar. I will sit down and play it. I was following intuition. I was not thinking, oh, I don't want to do this. I would never want to do this. I simply did it because it felt right at the time. I was following intuition. And indeed, what happened was that when I sat down and played, even though hardly anybody was paying attention to me, a couple people noticed that it was somebody different sitting down. Even though I sat down and played, and previously I had thought in my mind, oh, I never want to do this. I don't want to do this. In reality, what happened is I had a great time, and I loved it. It was fun. So the two voices, the voice of intuition, which is always now, and it always knows everything, and the thinking voice, the voice that is always worried about the future or the past, and never about now. In all circumstances in our life, we can use this technique to determine what to do. Every action that we ever do can be guided by the one that knows everything, that lives in the now. Some of you may have heard of this project that the Army did many years ago, where they got together a group of psychics in order to do covert intelligence gathering mechanisms psychically. It's known as remote viewing. Now, remote viewing is a technique that can be learned. It's taught, or it used to be taught by the Army. I don't think it's actually officially taught anymore, but I find it hard to believe they would ever get rid of a technique that works. Officially, it's not happening, but more than likely it's still going on. Remote viewing is a technique where you or anyone, can follow a set of protocols and learn about anything in the universe. You can answer just about any question you want. Does Russia have any bombs at this particular location? Is Iran planning to do this or whatever? Are there nuclear weapons at this particular facility? Remote viewing answers those questions. And the reason I bring this up is because one of the key lessons that you learn when you are learning the technique of remote viewing is to not judge what comes into your mind. When you're doing remote viewing, and I know a little bit about this only because I took a course in remote viewing. When you're learning remote viewing, one of the first things you're taught is that you're going to get flashes or impulses or pictures. It could be audio, it could be pictures, it could be flashes, it could be information. It's going to be information, just raw data. And do not judge the data. Like, for instance, if you get a picture of a arm and a sickle, or hammer and a sickle, rather, you are to write it down. You're not to say, oh, well, that's the symbol for Russia, or that's the symbol for whatever. There's no analyzing going on during the process of remote viewing. There's only the gathering of the data, and you are a vehicle to a conduit for the information that comes in, and then it's transferred into symbolic representations on paper. So you just simply write the hammer and the sickle, or it could be squiggly lines, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be pictures, it can be anything. So the information that comes is directly transferred to the paper, and no judgment by the person doing the remote viewing is allowed. No judgment, no analytical analysis at all. You simply become the vehicle for this information, a conduit. And isn't that interesting that that's similar to what Regina Dawn Akers describes as the empty shell? The empty shell. The allowing of information to flow through you with no judgment of what it is. During remote viewing, what the person learns to do is accept intuition, the now, the information in the now, and transcribe it onto paper. There is no analytical process happening during the remote viewing session. There is no thinking allowed. There's no judgment. There's no analyzing. It is pure acceptance of the data as it comes, transferring the data into symbolic representation onto a piece of paper. We can live our lives this way. It is possible to live your life without thinking about what would happen in the future, without worrying about what's about to happen, and without worrying about the past. But it takes practice. It takes practice to not be attracted to the thoughts of what would happen if, or the thoughts of, I wish I would have. The practice involves turning off the thinking mind and listening to the voice of now. The voice of now, which always talks to us, which always has information that we do not know about. The voice of now, which only lives in the now. It never lives in the future or the past. It's only now. That voice is the voice of the Holy Spirit. It is the voice of everything. It's the voice of love. It is the voice that only wants our complete and total happiness. That's it. It only wants the best for us. So what voice will you listen to today? Will you listen to the voice of, I'm worried about what will happen tomorrow? Or will you listen to the voice that says, I wish I would not have done this? Or the voice of, in my case, oh, I would never do that. I would never sit down and play in a restaurant with a bunch of people that weren't listening to me. Would you listen to that voice? Or will you listen to the voice of now? The voice that when he hands the guitar to you, you simply grab it and you play, and there's no thinking. Which voice will you listen to today? This has been Awakenings. Thank you for joining me today. Until the next time, Have a wonderful now.